is Ibrahim Traore, the youthful president of Burkina Faso, turning his country into a center for nuclear weapons. Burkina Faso is going through a lot of upheaval. The economy and military are both entirely revamped. However, no one, especially in the West, expected nuclear weapons in Burkina Faso. But why does Burkina Faso's military strategy so frequently bring up the West? These changes are particularly concerning to the West, and they're probably already planning how to put roadblocks in Burkina Faso's way so the nation can't easily change Africa's stature in the world. Can they actually stop Traoré? That is what we all want to know. Watch this video as we tell you more about nuclear weapons in Burkina Faso. The West, which has grown accustomed to maintaining uncontested control over nuclear power and cutting-edge technology, is currently battling a trend that could upset the existing quo. Burkina Faso is a country that most people in the West probably couldn't even find on a map without help. But it's entering the nuclear age with confidence. The establishment of an atomic energy agency in Burkina Faso, led by President Ibrahim Traore, has caused trepidation in the corridors of power in Western capitals. This development is especially noteworthy because of Burkina Faso's timing and wider ramifications, in addition to its chutzpah in pursuing nuclear energy. Burkina Faso's quest for atomic energy is a radical departure in a world where possession of nuclear technology has traditionally been linked to worldwide power. Not only is it a step toward energy independence, but it's also a proclamation that Burkina Faso, and indeed all of Africa, is prepared to give up on remaining on the periphery of technological development and worldwide impact. However, why now? It is impossible to comprehend Burkina Faso's deliberate and well-thought-out decision to create the Burkina Atomic Energy Agency at this specific time without taking the larger geopolitical environment into account. The globe is changing right now, with new powers rising and old alliances eroding. The West, which was once the undisputed leader of the world order, is currently dealing with a number of issues, including internal political strife and the emergence of China and Russia as significant actors in the world arena. Under these circumstances, the established power structures are changing, giving long marginalized states a chance to make their mark on the international scene. For Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré, the president, this is a really promising time. Burkina Faso has a leader who understands realpolitik and history well enough to know that the time has come for the country to make decisive moves towards security. The founding of the Burkina Atomic Energy Agency is about Burkina Faso taking charge of its own future, not only producing power. Burkina Faso is indicating that it wants to be more than just a spectator in the global arena by pursuing nuclear energy. This move's time is closely related to the continent's larger drive toward technical advancement and independence. Previously viewed as a continent with limitless potential but little development, Africa is currently growing quickly. All around the continent, countries are adopting new technology, growing economically, and attempting to become less dependent on outside assistance and interference. Burkina Faso's nuclear aspirations are not unusual in this setting. They belong to a larger movement of African empowerment. It's crucial to remember, though, that Burkina Faso's transition to nuclear energy aims to do more than simply catch up to the rest of the world. Rather, it wants to redefine what is possible for African countries. Burkina Faso is refuting the myth that nuclear power and cutting-edge technologies are only available to the West and a select group of wealthy countries by founding the Burkina Atomic Energy Agency. This message is likely to reverberate throughout the continent, spurring other African countries to pursue their own paths toward technological and economic independence. However, it remains unclear whether Burkina Faso's nuclear ambitions are motivated solely by energy independence or if there is a deeper strategic objective at work. Add your voice to the total liberation of Africa by leaving a comment in the comments section below. Please do not forget to like and subscribe for more informative videos like this one. Let's proceed. Burkina Faso's quest for nuclear energy may appear to many onlookers as a simple effort to rectify the nation's energy shortage. After all, less than 25% of Burkina Faso's population has consistent access to electricity, and power outages have long hurt the nation's economy. With its ability to offer a reliable and sustainable power supply, nuclear energy seems to be the perfect answer to these issues. However, if one were to only consider Burkina Faso's nuclear aspirations in terms of its energy need, one would be missing the move's larger strategic ramifications. There is more to the creation of the Burkina Atomic Energy Agency than merely a dedication to expanding access to power. It's a declaration of Burkina Faso's intention to stand up for its independence and sovereignty in the face of the West and a few other countries' historical monopolies on these areas. In this regard, the Burkina Atomic Energy Agency is a multifaceted organization. It represents Burkina Faso's resolve to forge ahead without interference from international organizations and former colonial powers that have traditionally set the parameters for African countries' economic growth. Furthermore, the search for nuclear energy is inevitably linked to issues of geopolitical influence and national security. Even if Burkina Faso claims that its nuclear aspirations are entirely peaceful, Western capitals should be alarmed only by the fact that an African country is pursuing nuclear technology. This is not because Burkina Faso represents a serious threat. Rather, it is because the West has long functioned under the belief that it should continue to be in control of modern technology, especially nuclear technology. Whether stated or not, there is concern that Burkina Faso's action may serve as a model for other African countries to emulate. What's to stop other African countries from pursuing nuclear energy if Burkina Faso, a nation with few resources and a small economy, can? In the event that Africa as a continent starts to enhance its nuclear capacities, how would this impact the worldwide balance of power? The potential advantages of nuclear energy for Burkina Faso extend beyond only supplying domestic energy requirements. Burkina Faso may establish itself as a regional power with the capacity to impact not only energy policy, but also wider geopolitical processes in West Africa and beyond by emerging as a leader in nuclear technology. The West, which has grown used to setting the parameters of world power and influence, is likely to feel uneasy about this possibility. But Burkina Faso's quest for nuclear energy is about more than just opposing the West. It's also about developing a fresh framework for African development, one that is founded on independence, scientific advancement, and a dedication to national sovereignty. Burkina Faso is letting the world know that it is prepared to join the ranks of the world's technologically savvy countries, and that it is not scared to question the current quo in order to achieve this by forming the Burkina Atomic Energy Agency. Burkina Faso's nuclear aspirations have significant potential ramifications for both the nation and the larger international system. What dangers come with taking such a daring course, though? How might the West react to this threat to nuclear energy's hegemony? And is Burkina Faso ready for the difficulties that lie ahead? It is important to choose the road less traveled while creating nuclear energy, especially for a country like Burkina Faso that is just starting out in this field. There are many different types of barriers, from financial and technical obstacles to geopolitical and regulatory issues. But the potential benefits are also substantial, providing Burkina Faso with an opportunity to modernize its economy and ensure its energy supply. The lack of technical know-how is one of Burkina Faso's biggest problems. In Burkina Faso, there is currently a dearth of specialist knowledge necessary for the development and operation of nuclear power plants. Although the nation has made progress in terms of training and education, it takes time to acquire the kind of knowledge needed to oversee a nuclear program. Burkina Faso will need to establish strategic alliances with nations like South Korea, China, and Russia that have nuclear technological experience in order to handle this. These collaborations will be essential in supplying the know-how and instruction required to guarantee the security and efficacy of Burkina Faso's nuclear program. The creation of a regulatory structure that satisfies international norms presents another major obstacle. For good reason, the nuclear energy sector is among the most strictly regulated in the world. Nuclear energy carries a number of possible risks that need to be handled carefully, from reactor mishaps to the storage of radioactive waste. Burkina Faso will have to set up a strong regulatory agency to supervise the construction and management of its nuclear power plant and guarantee that all security and safety procedures are followed to the letter. In addition to technological know-how, political will also be needed because the government has to be ready to impose these rules strictly. In addition to these financial and technical difficulties, Burkina Faso has to negotiate the geopolitical terrain that comes with exploring nuclear energy. There is a strong incentive for the US and Europe, in particular, to keep control of the world nuclear order. Even if an African country aims to develop nuclear technology for peaceful purposes, it is likely to encounter resistance and skepticism. As Burkina Faso advances with its nuclear program, it will have to brace itself for diplomatic pressure, economic penalties, and other types of meddling from the West. The benefits of generating nuclear energy could outweigh these difficulties. The ability to give its people a steady and dependable supply of power is Burkina Faso's most pressing advantage. This might then encourage industrial expansion, draw in foreign capital, and raise the nation's general level of living. But Burkina Faso might potentially establish itself as a regional leader in addition to the economic advantages, influencing West African security dynamics and energy strategy through its nuclear expertise. Furthermore, Burkina Faso is leading by example for other African countries by pursuing nuclear energy. It demonstrates that Africa is a producer as well as a consumer of technology, capable of creating and perfecting some of the most cutting-edge innovations on the planet. This may encourage other African countries to follow their aspirations in technology, ushering in a period of unprecedented creativity and independence across the continent. While exploring nuclear energy has significant risks, there are also potential benefits. The way the West responds to Burkina Faso as it travels down this path will determine how things turn out. But what does Burkina Faso's nuclear ambitions signify for the future of global power relations? And how is the West likely to respond? Burkina Faso's nuclear aspirations are expected to cause worry in the West, doubt and, in the end, containment efforts. The West has dominated world affairs for decades by controlling cutting-edge technology, especially nuclear technology. Western nations find it profoundly worrisome that an African country could break this monopoly, and they will probably respond by putting diplomatic pressure on Burkina Faso and using economic sanctions and other covert measures to thwart its attempts. In a diplomatic move, the West is probably going to use a mix of threats and inducements to try and talk Burkina Faso out of pursuing its nuclear goals. There may be offers of financial support, investments, and technical help, but there will be conditions, strings intended to maintain Western control over Burkina Faso's nuclear program. Simultaneously, Western countries are anticipated to advocate for heightened oversight of Burkina Faso's nuclear operations by global organizations like the International Atomic Energy Agency, to restrict the nation's capacity to independently develop nuclear technology. But such strategies are not likely to convince President Traoré. His administration is expected to continue to resist Western pressure in its pursuit of nuclear energy, as it has previously shown a willingness to do. Burkina Faso may grow more determined to see its nuclear ambitions realized the more the West retreats. Self-reliance and sovereignty are key to Traoré's vision for Burkina Faso, and he is unlikely to let Western meddling get in the way of that. Subtly, using more devious methods, the West might potentially try to sabotage Burkina Faso's nuclear program. This might involve making an effort to sabotage the program's supply of technology and supplies or attempting to incite discord inside Burkina Faso itself. In the past, similar strategies have been employed to stop other countries from acquiring nuclear weapons. There's no reason to think Burkina Faso won't receive the same treatment. These initiatives, meanwhile, are probably doomed to fail, which will further strengthen Traoré's administration's determination to pursue nuclear energy. The way the West responds to Burkina Faso's nuclear aspirations will disclose a great deal about the real dynamics of world power. The world has too long functioned under the presumption that nuclear technology, in particular, is the sole province of the West and a small number of other countries. Burkina Faso's behavior contradicts this belief, and the response from the West will either strengthen or weaken the current international system. Africa and the rest of the world may enter a new phase of collaboration if the West decides to interact with Burkina Faso in a constructive manner by providing real aid and support without conditions. Still, Africa will only become more divided from the West and more estranged from a continent that is progressively claiming its independence and sovereignty if the West reacts angrily and makes an attempt to thwart Burkina Faso's efforts. Let's now discuss the opinions of professionals regarding this circumstance. There are hints that Burkina Faso may be taking steps toward producing nuclear weapons with this. For Western leaders, the very notion that Burkina Faso could be pursuing nuclear weapons is unsettling. To those who have been accustomed to the existing global power system, it seems nearly unimaginable that an African country, especially one that has historically been marginalized, could generate such potent deterrence. However, let's stand back and examine the potential. Is Burkina Faso's pursuit of nuclear energy a step toward the development of nuclear weapons? If that's the case, what effects might that have on the world and Africa? First and foremost, it is critical to recognize that Burkina Faso, like any other sovereign state, is free to use all legal methods necessary to safeguard its interests. It is not altogether implausible to speculate that Burkina Faso is investigating the possibility of acquiring nuclear weapons, given the current perception of these weapons as the ultimate assurance of national security. The Burkina Atomic Energy Agency may theoretically be the initial step toward obtaining the infrastructure and technological know-how required to develop nuclear weapons in the nation. Burkina Faso's pursuit of nuclear weapons would be revolutionary for the continent of Africa as a whole, not just for the nation. Since 52 African states signed the Treaty of Pelindaba, which established the continent as a nuclear weapon-free zone, Africa has been free of nuclear weapons. Africa's commitment to advancing regional peace and stability is reflected in this pact. But the world is changing, and the established power structures are coming under pressure. Given this, Burkina Faso might consider the use of nuclear weapons to be essential to safeguarding its sovereignty and interests as a nation. Burkina Faso would face severe repercussions if it decided to seek nuclear weapons. On the one hand, it might act as a potent disincentive to outside violence. Burkina Faso would be essentially impregnable if it had nuclear weapons, since any attack on the nation would run the risk of a catastrophic nuclear counterattack. As a result, Burkina Faso's neighbors and outside powers might be more reluctant to meddle in its internal affairs, which could increase regional stability. It is challenging to provide a firm response to the question of whether Burkina Faso is indeed pursuing nuclear weapons or is only looking to produce nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. But Burkina Faso's intentions are suspect, and the West's mistrust of them is symptomatic of a deeper dread: the worry that Africa may now be claiming its position on the international scene and escaping the restrictions placed on it by previous colonial nations. The strategic reasoning for Burkina Faso's possible pursuit of nuclear weapons is something to think about. Nuclear weapons are viewed as the ultimate equalizer in a world where military force frequently prevails over diplomatic attempts. Getting nuclear weapons could be considered as a means of leveling the playing field for Burkina Faso. a nation that has always been vulnerable to stronger powers. It would guarantee that Burkina Faso's voice is heard in international affairs and enable it to negotiate from a position of strength rather than weakness. However, there's still much to think about. The possible pursuit of nuclear weapons by Burkina Faso may also constitute an attempt to subvert the current international system. The West, which has long kept its hegemony by controlling cutting-edge technology, especially nuclear technology, would have to face the fact that its monopoly on power is slipping. This might result in a more multipolar world with more equal distribution of power and increased influence for African countries in international affairs. Ultimately, it's unclear if Burkina Faso is actually working toward obtaining nuclear weapons. Still, the prospect alone is enough to rock the world's power system to its core. It compels us to reevaluate the presumptions that have long guided international relations and to admit that Africa isn't content to follow the norms that other people have established. Whether or not Burkina Faso has nuclear weapons in mind, its aspirations to reach the atomic stage send a strong message that the world's power dynamics are changing and that Africa is prepared to assume a more prominent role. Do you believe that the West's approach to Africa will change as a result of these audacious plans? Can they now choose a win-win collaboration? We explore the rich history, culture, and the ongoing struggle for sovereignty in Africa. Join us in this important conversation by subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you're not just staying informed, you're becoming part of a movement dedicated to reclaiming Africa's rightful place on the global stage. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's work together to spread knowledge and inspire change. Thanks for watching.